The South African and African athletics community continues to mourn the passing of former world high jump champion Jacques Freitag. The 42-year-old won gold at the 2003 World Championships at just 21 years old and remains the only South African to have won a world title across 3 different age categories: under 18, under 20 and senior level. To talk more about the life of Jacques Freitag, we're joined by athletics journalist Manfred Seidler, who's currently in Durban. A very good evening and welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Good to be chatting to you once again. A tragic end to a life which gave so much to the event of high jumping.
Good evening, Valen. Yes, indeed. And you will also remember when he first came onto the scene, there was this tall, lanky kid, and that's what he was. I mean, as you said, youth world champion, world junior champion, and then obviously becoming world champion. Very gangly, awkward, 2-meter plus young man. But when he lined up for the high jump, there was nothing gangly or awkward about him. He was absolutely phenomenal. And I mean, his South African record still stands to this day, which was set as far back as 2005. A big loss, and I think that loss, I know he's physically passed away now, but he's had an on and off challenging life since he left the world of athletics. And, he was already lost to the sport early on because of injury and because of, unfortunately, having bad experiences with substance abuse. So Jacques Freitag is, he was already lost to us, I suppose, in a way, even before this tragic physical passing of him.
Manfred, I just have to wonder if our culture of athletics in the country is on the right track and if we're doing enough to look after our athletes, because this unfortunately has been a tragic end and, as you say, was lost early on to the sport. But I mean, if we just think about Manyonga and his own battle with recreational drugs, is enough being done in athletics? Can more be done?
I think the answer is more can always be done in everything, and this is not unique to South Africa. You look at the international sporting arena, and there are many examples of athletes who've succumbed to recreational drugs, who've succumbed to depression. It's not unique to South African athletics. It's not unique to the sporting world. So yes, more can always be done. We must also remember, though, that you can only do so much unless the person that you're trying to help is wanting to be helped. And that's always starts with the individual. But in terms of whether or not, I say we can always do more. I do think, though, that South Africa, in terms of South African athletics, in terms of resources, we do really need to step up. It's not as if South Africa doesn't have the resources outside of the sports, from a psychological point of view, from a rehab point of view, if you're suffering from substance abuse. Again, the athlete, the individual, needs to have the will. But I do think that the sport as a whole can and should do more, right from the top. Right down to coaches. I'm not criticizing by any means Jacques' coaches in the past. They really did reach out and try to do a lot for him. But as a whole, yeah, I just think that our athletics community is not equipped to deal with this kind of thing, and that's where you need to bring in professional help. And I think that sport in South Africa in general should be having conversations with universities that offer the kind of help that these athletes need. If you look at Manyonga at Tuks, he was in a very good program there, and at that point in time he was very interested and was doing the necessary work. And then he also went off the rails. So the resources are there if we align ourselves with the correct people. And as I said, ultimately, if the athlete or the individual doesn't want to follow through, then there's only so much one can do.
It is a tragic end, but that takes nothing away from the fantastic memories that he actually gave us when he was competing and the kind of person and athlete that he was. How will you remember him?
Well, the first time I really met him properly was in the World Junior Championships in Chile in 2000 when he won that world title. Obviously, I'd seen him on the athletic circuit before, but that was the first time I really got to spend time with him. And he was a fun-loving young kid, full of mischief, as any teenager would be. But he had a hunger, which took him to the heights that he reached. World Junior champion, world champion. Um, he he was, and he was an inspiration from in the athletics fraternity. And we'd never had this kind of a protege on the men's side of high jumping. On the ladies' side, there was Hestry Klute, who obviously inspired a lot of young ladies to do high jumping. And Jacques was the male role model. And I mean, if you scroll through social media now, you'll see the athletes of that era, the likes of Hestry and Ockert Brits, Llewellyn Herbert, they're all posting on social media, and you'll see the photos that they're posting. They remember him as a fun-loving, mischievous youngster, but an almost audacious talent. He was ridiculously talented. Injuries in the end, I think, assisted the process of him succumbing to recreational drugs. He did battle with injury. And I do remember that, I think it was at the 2004 Olympic Games when he was heavily strapped and his ankle was, the bone in his ankle, the cartilage in his ankle was actually very brittle. So he struggled with injury, and that did cut his career short. His best in 2005 was that national record of 2:38. And then if you look at his performances after that, they started to go down. The best he was able to do a year later was 2:24. And it wasn't good enough on the world stage. And I think that the fact that he was battling with injury, could never really come back, never really healed probably, would have contributed to him succumbing and falling into depression and the use of recreational drugs.
Manfred Seidler, thank you very much. Athletics journalist chatting to us about the life and legacy of Jacques Freitag. His African record, 2.38, also still stands, also South Africa's national record.